And welcome back for another episode. So let's have a quick look at what's going on. So there's a few things that we've decided to do between the episodes. We'll be setting up a colony over here. Now it does require some low gravity infrastructure there, so it will take some time before we can actually start doing it. And we will of course keep expanding Guantanamo Bay as best we can. But this we've set up freighters to go to Chile. Now it's going to take a better part of a year before they actually arrive there. But at the same time, there's another thing that is actually quite interesting. In Philippines, we'll be setting up a colony over here because it has a zero colonization cost. We'll send the colonists there, and then we'll also ship a little bit of the forced labor mining camps, because that one does produce iron. And if we can get the mining going on in there with a decent speed, we can then bring all the minerals back to Manila, and in Manila we can start using those resources to build more mines, for example, and expand this colony here quite a bit. And at the same time, once we have the resources, or rather once we have the infrastructure, we'll also colonize this one, because it has some wood, and okay, it has a lot of different resources, not good accessibilities, same problem over here, but at the same time, this one, that one produces iron and sail and rigging with a pretty good speed, and there's plenty of it there. So that's going to be very good for the economy of this region, and especially with the Manila itself. It doesn't produce a lot of sail and rigging, it doesn't produce any iron. It does produce some wood, and brass and gunpowder and rum and glass, but still, these resources over here, I think they might be missing something still. They do actually get bronze and stone. Anyway, this will be a fairly well-sustaining area here, because this is fairly far away from any of our other colonies, so it kind of has to be self-sustaining for the most part. But that way we can expand our influence in this region, and eventually this might be a pretty strong hub in the area, and that might work as a base to colonize further areas in the Pacific. Now we did get a decent bit of income from our trade deals, but it's not quite enough to get rid of the malus that we have on economic production modifier. However, since we have essentially stopped producing maintenance supplies in most places at least, that does mean that our income is actually going to start increasing quite a bit now. Now in terms of fleet changes, or fleet movements, we did set up the freighters to go to Chile and all that, and we will be repairing the ships that took part in the Philadelphia raid, and of course the other ships that have finally arrived in Havana will be undergoing some overhauls. But eventually they will be alright. And we'll have to see what we want to do with those fleets. I mean, repairing is going to take a while, since we only have, I think, only one shipyard in Havana, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, we only have one shipyard, and it's currently adding a slipway so we can repair a little bit faster, but it will take some time to repair everything. But we'll get that done sooner or later. And then we'll have at least 40 ships there still, with all the reinforcements and such. And our Mediterranean fleet is still linked up with the French, and they'll be going between Toulon and Barcelona now, like every 3 months. Let the other fleet do overhaul and then go to the other port eventually, and so forth, just so that those fleets together at least have a little bit more firepower. Separated, they're basically just minimum fleets to keep the areas happy. So they're not very strong, but at least they're there. And then of course in Cadiz and El Ferrol, we are going to be expanding our fleets the best we can. But that is going to be about it for the start of this episode, so I'll bring you guys back in just a few moments. We have constructed a naval headquarters in Manila, and we're starting now producing infrastructure for our colonization efforts. Also, the new colony in the Philippine Sea already has a quarter of the mining camp there, and it has a little bit of population. Now, it's not a lot, but it will keep on increasing. And eventually we'll start getting a fair bit of iron and sail and rigging in here, as well as some stone, bronze and glass. So together with the Manila itself, it's going to be relatively good. Only things that is going to be missing is tar and I believe bronze. No, actually bronze is there. Food on the other hand is not. And we won't be getting food on the third one either, but this one requires the infrastructure before we can actually colonize it. But that is why we are producing infrastructure now in Manila. We have spotted a Dutch ship approaching Brujas. It looks like it's only one ship, so it's most likely just scouting ahead a little bit. We only have 2 ships in there, but at this point I think we may want to bring these ships to El Ferro or something like that, because if they see that we only have 2 ships here, then they will most likely attack and we're going to have to retreat anyway. And if they see that there's no ships there, then probably going to attack anyway, so there's like... The 2 brigs in there that we have are not going to do a lot in defense, so I will pull the ships back to Bay of Biscay and all the way to El Ferro. They should be getting there in due time, and hopefully they can get there before the enemy spots us. It is as we feared. The Dutch are sending in a fleet towards Brujas. I mean, so far we can only see 7 ships, but that is still 7 ships more than what we have. We only have 1 survey vessel here right now, and that's essentially lost. It's currently doing an overhaul, and it won't be able to do anything else. If we try to cancel the overhaul now, it's not going to work. I mean, we can check how far in... Oh yeah, there's a lot of maintenance to be done, so that's as good as dead right now. And the enemy is likely going to destroy the coastal defenses in here. I mean, we can quickly check how much do we actually have. We have 3 coastal fortifications. They'll be able to do a little bit damage, hopefully, on the enemy, but it is very likely that the enemy will overwhelm these rather quickly. We'll have to have a meeting with the French regarding this. And under less than 15 minutes of fighting, our coastal fortifications have fallen. They did sink our survey vessel that was undergoing some overhaul in Bruges. Oddly enough, they did leave our shipyard intact, and we are currently building a ship there, which is actually pretty good that they left that intact. So we'll have at least 1 more ship, hopefully, unless they invade this place, which is entirely possible. This is essentially in the heartland of our enemies. London is over there, and Amsterdam over there. No, there. So we are very close to the enemy capitals here, so it's very likely that they will send some sort of forces to take us out. We did do a fair bit of damage on the enemy ships. On one of the smaller enemy ships we did actually do some component damage, but other than that it was mostly armor damage, which is a bit of a shame. Of course, these were only the initial coastal fortifications designs, so they are not as good as the newer ones. The armor is lower, the accuracy is a bit smaller and so forth, and especially once we get the better cannon design and all that. If I'm not mistaken, we are going to work towards that. Yes, we're getting the bigger carronades there in El Ferro, and once we do that, we'll then be able to build the 10-pounder, well, design the 10-pounders. I believe we already have the... Actually, I'm not sure if we do. No, we... let me check that. No, we haven't gotten the faster reload yet. But even then, with the bigger caliber coastal fortifications, even if they don't fire as quickly, they would still be useful. At least in small numbers in coastal fortifications. At last, some good news. We have completed research on better sails, so we started designing the new Master Force ships, and hopefully we can do that quickly. We'll start with the Trade Ship Master so that we can update some of our commercial vessels to be a bit more effective, because a lot of our colonies have long distances to travel, so with the better engines there, that will actually help our economy substantially. And after that we'll start from the smallest just so that we can get them researched quickest. Now it's gonna take a while, we won't be getting the Ship of the Line mast in this year most likely, but we can probably get pretty close. We have now completed research on the bigger caliber cannons, and we have started the shipyard operations time and cost saving 5% in El Ferro. Now it's going to take about 2 years to research through, so it's not going to be immediate, and once we get the capacity recharge rate, which is going to be, well, it's not a priority right now, we'll hopefully get it eventually. But once we get that, especially once we get the research rate, that's going to speed up things a little bit, so once we get that we can then redesign our cannons to fire pretty much twice as fast. Well, actually, not pretty much, it is exactly twice as fast. And of course, at that point, we do need to redesign a lot of our ships, but until then, we'll probably go with our old ships, for the time being anyway. We have spotted Portuguese ships approaching Buenos Aires, and while we don't know if they are hostile or not, well, I mean, we are at war, so it is very likely that they're going to raid the port here. So what we've done is we've given orders for the ships here, which is not a lot to be fair. 2 transport, 2 support vessels, 1 4th rate and a 7th rate. So it's very meager navy there, but we'll step aside to the waypoint 1 there, which should be beyond their spotting range once they actually reach here. We do have a little bit coastal fortifications in Buenos Aires, but it's not a lot, so I don't think it's gonna have a huge effect. Like, there's only 2, and then there's 2 battalions of troops, meaning that it is very likely that the coastal fortifications will fall very quickly, but hopefully they do not notice how small our armies actually are. It would appear that the enemy has detached some of their ships, which actually, at least 2 of them seem to be support vessels, or rather commercial vessels, so it's probably support vessels, and then there's 1 extra ship, which actually has the vertical cannon controls there, which is staying back, which is actually not a bad tactic to be fair. But they do have quite a few ships coming in. Hopefully we can do at least some sort of damage on them before our fortifications falls, because there's no question about it, they will win this. The enemy fleet has now opened fire on the fortifications. We have gotten 7 hits right now, and they've gotten 1 hit on our side. Unfortunately, they already destroyed one of our 8-pounder sections. We have been focusing our fire on what is the easiest target to hit, which of course seems to be the biggest ship that they have right now, which by the looks of it is a 2nd rate. Now we have dealt a fair bit of damage on it already, although I don't think we've actually penetrated the armor yet. Unfortunately, we have lost about a quarter of our fortifications firepower, so we'll see how long we can last. Hopefully we can at least deal a significant amount of damage on that ship. Majority of our fortification is now in ruins, so we only have 1 section of 6-pounders and 1 section of 8-pounders left firing upon the enemy, so we can maybe do a little bit damage, but our damage output drops significantly with 1 significant barrage from the enemy, destroying nearly half of our original firepower in 1 broadside. We have completed our initial round of constructions that we started at the start of the game in Barcelona. We now decided to build another 25 construction factories, and then with 30% each a Crown Force construction complex and a naval shipyard complex. Because we do need to get some shipyards up here, and if we can get some Crown Force construction complexes in here, we can maybe expand our coastal fortifications a little bit quicker, as well as make sure that we keep on building actual troops as well, in case the enemy tries to attack. We are currently building 2 fortifications there. One is a bit older model, and the second one is a bit fresher, but it still doesn't have the higher fire speed. It does have higher accuracy, as well as a little bit higher armor, so while it might not be able to tank a lot of hits, at least it will be hitting enemies a lot more. Another sleepaway has been added to our shipyard in Havana, and we are now repairing 2 ships at once there. We still have some ships to repair, so things are not going particularly quickly there, but quite a noticeable portion of the ships have already been fixed, so there's still, I'd say about half of the ships are requiring repairs, but we'll get them done eventually. I mean, we've been repairing for close to a year now that we got a 2nd shipyard. This should be done in, I don't know, maybe half a year, although these might be the more damaged ones, so maybe a year still. We have completed research on the faster refueling. Of course, that is a component that needs to be refitted to our support vessels to take an effect. However, we now started designing our new gunpowder storages, which we probably should have started a long time ago. The problem is that we don't have enough of the right specialization researchers, so we're currently using the best that we have that is not specialized in that. It does a decent job, I suppose, but it's not quite as great as a proper researcher. In addition, we have now redesigned the commercial vessels that we have, including putting in the better refueling system in the support vessels, and then we've decided to drop the size of our commercial vessels to 12,000 tons instead of 12,500 tons. That does give us a bit of extra speed. Majority of that tonnage drop was actually just from updating the armor, so that means that we didn't actually need to take pretty much anything out from the ships, so to speak. And with the extra speed, consider that we have colonies in few distinct areas. We have the South America, we got Europe, and then we got Philippines. And going between those 3 places is currently a bit dangerous, but if we can utilize the higher speed for our commercial vessels, that should fix the issue. Now, we will of course need to retool our shipyards to meet these now, but it shouldn't be too big of a problem, I think. The freighters that we sent to Valparaiso have finally arrived there. They've been sailing for almost a year. Now, we don't have infrastructure to start shipping out there quite yet. We do have some resources at the civilian mining colony, which we'll start bringing into the colony itself, and eventually, once we do get around building some infrastructure there, we'll then start setting up another colony, most likely. And there we have it, that's another year. So let's take a quick look at what's going on. So first of all, we are building a bit more research facilities in Cadiz. I think we did start that a while ago though, so it shouldn't be a surprise anymore. But that is something that we are going to work towards, and we should be able to get at least one research facility in Cadiz next year, which will help us maybe catch up in tech a little bit. We are still working on getting the mast designs, of course, and we'll be upgrading our research rate a little bit, as well as construction rate. And then, of course, we'll work towards getting the capacitor recharge rate because we need that to design our new cannon. But before the capacitor recharge rate is done, I'm a bit reluctant on finalizing the new ship designs because the newer cannons will make our firepower much more effective. Mostly because we can fire twice as quickly, essentially, and then we do need to redesign the new cannon, so it's going to take a while, but we'll get through that eventually. Of course, we could technically relocate some of the research labs to there. On the other hand, I would like to get some of these things quickly enough so that we will be able to keep up in production and other things as well. Now, in terms of shipyards, most of our shipyards in Cadiz are working most of the time. We're currently updating some of the newer ship designs, because we did actually... I did mention this, I believe, but yeah, we redesigned our commercial ships to be a little bit smaller, so I believe we can't build them anymore on the same shipyard, which is a bit of a shame, but at the same time, it should be alright. And once we have those, we'll start retooling our commercial vessels as well. Of course, in Barcelona, we don't have a shipyard quite yet. We are working towards building one, and that should be done not next year, but the year after that, by the looks of it. So it's not too bad, but yeah, it's going to take a while still. Because we are improving the construction rate in Barcelona a fair bit. And then we'll be building Crown Force Construction Complex as well, so that we can train a bit more troops there, because we can only currently train 2 of them at a time. So it's not all that great. Of course, the more we build ground troops, the more we need to pay upkeep for them. So it is going to be a bit of a hindrance for our economy. But next year we should be having quite a stable economy already, because with our trade deal with the French, we'll be getting 4,700 as our profits from that, which is going to take us to the positive for once at least, and we'll probably be able to keep that up for the time being. Now, in terms of other research, in Barcelona we're getting the gunpowder storages updated, which is going to allow us save a bit more tonnage on our ships, so that's going to be good. And then in El Ferro we're getting the shipyard operation time and cost, which again is going to take a while, but that is going to save us a lot of cash once we start updating and adding sleepways and all that to more of our shipyard. And then in Havana we are repairing 2 ships at a time. There's still plenty of ships that we do need to repair. If we have a look at that real quick, it's maybe about 60% or somewhere between 50 and 60% have been repaired already. Of course, there's still some of the bigger ships that have not been repaired, and the smaller ships have been repaired a bit more, so it's still going to take a while, but this fleet should be operational in due time, maybe end of next year. Or it might take it a little bit longer actually, because some of the ships take a few months to repair, so it's going to be a problem. But we've done certainly good progress here, so it's not the end of the world. But most things that we're currently building are not out of the ordinary. Like, there's a few research labs, and there's shipyards and Crown Force unit construction complexes and all that sort of stuff. But yeah, there's not a huge amount. We will be expanding our colony both in Guantanamo Bay, and then eventually we'll be setting the colony in the other port in Cuba, which we don't actually have a colony yet. It's going to be a little bit expensive because it requires the low gravity infrastructure, and we haven't been building any yet, which we probably could actually do. But we'll get that colony probably started next year, just so that we'll have a bit more activity in Caribbean and spread out our holdings a little bit more, so if one of them gets attacked, then not everything is lost immediately. Also, we'll be starting probably a new colony in Chile next year, since we got our ships there finally, but it did take most of the year there, so I'm just gonna figure that one out between the episodes here, to which one should we colonize and all that, what are we going to need in there and so forth. And but we'll probably get a colony in Chile going, so we'll have a bit more presence there. And of course the colonies in Philippines are doing alright. We currently have 5 mining camps here, and doing alright. They're mining a little bit. Like, it's not a huge production yet, but it will get better and better over time, especially since we don't need any infrastructure here. The population growth will be relatively quick, both in Manila and the new colony there, and then there's the other colony that does require some infrastructure. So before we get to that, we do need to get some, well, actually we have produced some infrastructure here, so we could start the colony in here as well. But we'll slowly be building up the Philippines colonial area up over the years here. Now it's going to be very slow because we can't really send much stuff from elsewhere, so it's going to be mostly the stuff that's already in there, mostly because the distance is just insanely big. I mean, Chile is probably the closest one that we could reach without too much problem, but even that is going to take several months to actually reach there. But yeah, so slowly but surely we'll set up more colonies. We might look into maybe getting some of the things in Bruges out of there, because there is a very big concern about potential attack on Bruges, because this is essentially in enemy zone right now, and we don't have a huge amount of defenses there. So yeah, it's going to be a bit of a problem. But we'll see about that later on. I do believe that our civilian shipping hasn't actually been expanding all that much, although I might be mistaken. It might have gotten a little bit more, but there's 3 freighters, 2 colony ships, and a harvester. Although I'm a bit... is this... when was this built? Oh, it was actually built this year. And how big of a capacity does it have? It has the same capacity, but it does have a little bit higher speed than the previous version. So that's actually not bad. It's still a bit slower than our regular transport, but it does have high capacity, so that's good. But our civilians are doing a decent bit of trading and all that, so we do get a decent bit of money out of that. Well, at least we get a little bit, actually. It's not that huge profit. I mean, other than the fact that the harvester is doing it pretty much constantly, so there's a small income. In terms of civilian mining colonies, we currently have only 2. We've got 1 in Chile and 1 in Caribbean. So it's not a huge amount, but they might expand a little bit further. But our navy has certainly been growing to a certain degree this year. I mean, we built several bigger ships and that sort of stuff. We will probably start upgrading our ships next year if we can get all the pertinent technology done first, but that is probably going to be a bit of a challenge still. Hopefully we can get our navy not only bigger but also more effective next year. For the most part this year has been a bit passive. We've been repairing the ships in the west, and in Europe we've been mostly just gathering up our ships and so forth, so there's not that huge action going on yet. Of course we did get attacked both in Buenos Aires and Bruges, but we didn't lose shipyards in Bruges, which is a bit odd, and then in Buenos Aires we also only lost, there was a little bit collateral damage on the city itself, but not a huge amount, and we lost the coastal defenses there, but we didn't lose anything else really, so it could have been a lot worse, to be fair. And we didn't lose any ships, so that's good, I suppose. We're currently using the shipyards in Bruges just to build more and more 6-rate as long as we can. We've been sending them back to El Ferrol in Bay of Biscay, just so that we'll have them a bit closer to home to be able to defend. We might actually have to set up a fleet to watch over this jump point, just so that we can keep an eye on who enters and when into the zone here. Because the French, as far as we know, are already watching the North Sea and the North Atlantic entrances. So if we take it over that one with some of our ships in El Ferrol, then that's going to help us keep an eye on the situation there. But all in all, it is a period of calmness in this war right now. And it doesn't look like the war is going to be ending anytime soon either. Not until there's at least another decisive battle, which hopefully is of course a victory for us, but we don't know yet, although we can see that the French have a huge navy there. But anyway, that's about it for this episode, so make sure to check out Ben's channel. Links are down below in the description, but other than that, thank you very much for watching, and until next time, bye bye.